Kay and Larry Woodcock, the grandparents of JJ Vallow. Thank you guys for joining me and catching up. I know it's been a little bit of time, about less than 2 weeks since the verdict, the guilty verdict that you guys have been waiting for so long. I really just want to know, first off, do you feel like justice has been served? How are you feeling right now?
I feel like justice has been served as far as the verdicts go, but we still have the sentencing to go to, and that, I guess, that's probably a question that needs to be asked at that point. But we have heard that Judge Boyce is very stern with his sentencing. So
we'll see.
We'll see. We have faith in him. We're very happy with him.
You know, Justin, to me, one of the most satisfying parts of the guilty verdict was the unanimous verdicts.
Yeah.
And on all six, well, I mean, it was. And that means a lot. That means those jurors really paid attention. They saw and heard horrific things. And I think they came to a righteous verdict. I think it's a good verdict. And at this point, I'm really waiting. I can't wait almost. It's like we've got to get back up to Rexburg for this sentencing. And I think at that point, we'll see maybe a little bit more finalization in this. And then, at that point, we move forward, and we've got 2 more trials, and whatever the outcome is,
Three.
we have more trials to come.
Yeah. And I want to ask you, going back to Rexburg, going back to Fremont County, Madison County, Eastern Idaho for sentencing, does that come full circle for you then? Is that the surreal reality there?
That, I believe, will be full circle. Absolutely. That will tie it up for her.
Well, full circle for me is when we get the bodies.
Yeah.
And we're able to do what we wanted, what the kids deserve.
To put them to rest.
Then we'll be at full circle.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point. That is huge. That is exactly what they deserve. We're talking about peace and honor and just the love that you guys want to show for them. It's been such a long wait. And Larry, a question for you. When we spoke during jury selection that first week of trial, you said you had been calmer than ever. You had prayed, and you just felt like much less stressed than maybe other times during this whole ordeal. So take me through the waves and flows of this entire trial, what this journey had been like for those, nearly 6 weeks for you both.
That's an emotional roller coaster. We've been preparing for this for a long time. You know that, Justin. We've had so many conversations about this, and we had a rough start. There was issues that we thought.
Right. Well, first we had to fight for the right to be in, for me to stay in the courtroom.
To even be in court.
And there's absolutely there's a bright light needs to be shown on the statute, the Idaho statute of the victim, the victim being that's only parents and kids, mom, dad, brother, sister, and not anything to do with grandparents. That really needs to be revisited. And I believe, and I have many actions that I've learned that I will be working on after we get, a little time between us here where we can really catch our breath. And but that is one big
well, there's
hole
issues
that
we have
filled.
to address. I mean, there's issues.
But then there's, I mean, just so I didn't go the day they showed graphic photos. I just couldn't do it. And I'm glad I didn't go. Larry did. And I mean, he's dealing with it. He had a hard time for a bit, but he's dealing with it. And then, I mean, just there was a day when, like the day she wanted to not be in the courtroom because, you know, doing her shenanigans and what else? What were the other things that there were a few days where we went home back to the apartment and we felt like this is not good. We just had these terrible feelings about whatever happened in court that day. I can't remember specifically.
Well, specifically, it was about the. Oh my God, I can't believe this. The evidence. Yeah.
A lot happened.
A lot happened.
Yeah.
And Larry, I would like to ask about that. That was one of the toughest days, maybe the toughest day for you to see the photos. I remember watching you. It was heartbreaking. And you could tell how you're trying to be strong, but for any loved one, you kind of break. And I wonder, like, is there any sort of help you're seeking right now? How are you dealing with this now?
Absolutely. We've seen, and I don't mean Kay and I, the court, the judge, the attorneys, the jurors. I've seen a lot, and it's some stuff that you can't unsee. You'll never unsee. And obviously, we've all heard things that it's going to take a lot of time to get past all of this. But
he sought help with our therapist, and she's helped walk him through a few of these things. And I mean, he doesn't reach out for help often. Mm-hmm. He's definitely the alpha male, but this was just too much. And he finally, and I'm so grateful he did, he said, I need to talk to Brenda. And so we definitely, thank God she's in our corner because she's helped us through some tight spots.
I don't know what we'd have done without Dr. Brenda.
And, that's a big deal.
It is.
Big deal for you to take that step.
Things, Justin, that I'm very concerned about is the jurors themselves, because there was some young jurors there. You know that you were there, and there's people that maybe has never been exposed to that type of evidence, and so I pray and I hope and I encourage, if anybody in that juror or in that courtroom has an issue, that they seek help, because it's hard. I mean, we've lived with this, and you know, I honestly, I'm glad at this point that the court allowed me to go back in after the court was dismissed for today, so I could review every photograph that we were allowed to see. And I know it may not sound, I don't know exactly, maybe some people take this wrong, but to me, it was therapeutic because I could see it literally from the grave, you know, until they got him out. And then reviewing the photographs of how horrific things were that were done to Tylee. There's no sense in that, Justin. Nobody should ever have to die that way, and especially at the hands of their mother and a stepfather. That you know, when you take on children, whether they're yours or whether they're strangers' children, that's an obligation to life. And that obligation is they're your children, they're your responsibility.
Okay, witness number one. I wanted to ask you this question way back, but you couldn't talk at the time. What was it like taking the stand and seeing Lori Vallow right across the courtroom, a moment that you had been waiting for, working towards for so long?
That was surreal. I honestly, I was calm up until that morning. I got kind of really anxious the morning of, but then I calmed down, and it's like I just had a feeling of calm once I got on the stand, and just I didn't get in a hurry with my answers. I tried to think them through. I've never been a witness in a trial before, witness in a murder trial before, or just there's so many levels, right? And
she'd never even jaywalked.
And it was just surreal. And it's like at one point they did a sidebar, and then I was just staring at Lori, and she would never look at me. She has yet to look at me. She would look like and I'm changing subject, but when I'd be in the gallery, she'd look over and just run right over me. She wouldn't lock eyes with me at all. And still, I mean, maybe she will at her sentencing, but whatever. I don't, whatever it is, and we'll deal with it.
Does part of any of you wish that the death penalty was still on the table?
No.
I'm glad, and in the end, it simplified the trial. Number one, I don't think that the jury would have found her guilty on everything had the death penalty been on the table still. And so overall, I've never been hung up on the death penalty. I'm just not. I'm just not hung up on that. So as long as her and Chad get life in prison without the benefit of parole, I'm good with that. So, I mean, I don't know what they'll do with Chad, but that's yet to be seen. But for her, I was really upset about it at first, but after it sunk in, I got okay with it.
Not me.
I
remember, I'm the alpha male grandpa. I wanted to take the shovel and bash her square in the face, but Idaho has a death penalty law that I think the oldest death penalty case is Justin, 37 years. And I don't want her to have a comfort in jail. And I don't know how that works, but if it gained one moment of comfort being on death row versus being in general population, then I will take the life in prison without the possibility of parole, and or whatever sentence the court deems. But I feel like that it'll be a just and fair and righteous decision that when they do sentence her.
Which person connected to all of this do you wish took the stand?
Lori?
We
know Melanie Pulowski was
supposed
to. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's go back to that. Ask that again.
Yeah, I know, but seriously, there could be a handful of choices, but I mean, she was supposed to, and we expected that, and she was seen, and it just didn't happen.
Right.
To me, that was the single biggest disappointment in the trial to me when it came to witnesses.
When we talked to prosecutors about it, and they, they know our feelings, but anyway, it is what it is. And somewhere, somehow down this justice road, I hope that Melanie Pulowski is going to have to answer to some of her choices she made with her Aunt Lori.
We just want answers from her, and I'd love to have all of those, that circle of jerks on a witness stand, just to answer questions, or answer my questions, because I truly feel they're all guilty by association, and I'm disappointed that they're not being held accountable for it, because I truly believe that they should be held accountable.
And are you speaking of key witnesses like Melanie Gibbs, Zulema Pastenes, these people that were in the inner circle and doing the castings with Lori, and they knew about these beliefs, and now they come back and testify? Do you think they felt some sort of guilt as they finally had to talk about all this to the court?
I hope they did.
Yeah, they should feel guilty.
They should feel guilty. They should be worried. They should be going to bed every night worried about it.
When you're praying for someone to be killed in a car accident, there is something wrong. There is something majorly wrong with you choosing to do that. It's something majorly wrong. And
Justin, you think about this. How many times?
The culpability of that is just unheard. I mean, it's just crazy.
How many times did you and I talk about this, that there has to be accountability to everybody involved in this. All it would have taken when Charles was murdered for somebody in that group to say, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
There has been, either prior to Charles's murder or shortly thereafter, to say, whoa, this has gone too far.
Right.
And if one other person gets a scratch on their hand, I'm going to the police, or I'm going to the police right now. I'm going to file a report that y'all are wishing for spouses to be dead. Chad and Lori's having this torrid affair, and everybody's just standing there and going along with it.
Yeah.
How sickening.
It is absolutely sickening.
Yeah, we're talking about Charles Vallow, Lori's fourth husband. For those who don't know, Sean Kildon Chandler by her brother, Alex Cox. Really, you talk about an intervention, someone saying, hey, this needs to stop. Charles was the one saying this needs to stop, and he wanted to set up something, and he wanted to get, her brother Adam Cox involved as well. And just really, he reached out to everyone. We know this through police reports, through body cam footage. Are you already focused on getting justice for him in this Arizona trial whenever it comes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, we've just had to do one hurdle at a time, and this first hurdle took a long time to get here, and now we've almost cleared it. We still have to do the sentencing, but I consider it 90% complete, I guess. But absolutely, Charles is just as important as JJ. We loved him just as much, and this, the same with Tylee and JJ. I mean, they are getting their justice now, and they still have Chad to his trial to go, but Charles is just right there in our hearts. He's right there with them, and so it's just as important what happens in Arizona as what did in Idaho.
Our family lost a brother,
uncle, dad,
dads, and to me, my brother-in-law and Kay's brother, and there again, for what? At some point, because we know without a doubt, I mean, we absolutely know that Chad didn't believe in this bullcorn. And we know for a fact that
he couldn't keep up with his own lies in it. First, their death percentages or 99% or whatever.
And
then at the end, it went to like 0.13, meaning you're close to death. So he forgot which was which. And so he just was throwing
all he was doing
throwing crap out there.
Right. He was blowing smoke up Lori's dress and in her mind, and that group of circle jerks.
She knew it.
Yeah,
she knew it.
yeah.
She's not a stupid person. She knew what he was doing.
Kay, we've talked about this before, how you became in your family like the sister that people started leaning on. You know, it's not like you're the oldest or anything. And at some point it happened. So when you look back on all of this now, are you in a way proud of getting that justice and not giving up and really finishing what Charles was trying to do, sending the message that he was trying to send?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't.
Kind of like you and your brother, like maybe it was like you guys were a team, even though he wasn't here any longer because he had been murdered, but you took over, even with the printer and the scanner and all these little things that you brought up as signs. And you could have stopped. You could have just said, well, that's it.
No, yeah, no, that's not in me.
No, neither one of us will stop.
No.
And neither one of us could stop. But, it was, there has to be justice for Charles. We have partial justice now for JJ and Tylee
as far as
and Tammy, as far as Lori is concerned. We have two more according to Kay, we have three, but to me, we have two more childs. And I think when this is all done, and accountability is issued and the sentences are there, they know now this is their fate, then maybe that'll start allowing us to look back on this, where we can start taking a deep breath and say, maybe there was a couple of things that we could have done, but I have beat myself up over this. What if I'd have just said no? What if I'd have just, never let this happen?
But I can't
undo that. And I'm not going to make excuses for it. I've got to quit blaming myself. It's hard. It's extremely hard. And I've never blamed Kay. I never will. But I do blame myself a lot. It's hard to not do it. But, there's going to be closure. But the great thing is that we will never forget JJ. We'll never forget Tylee. My heart goes out to Tammy and I just, her family. Oh my goodness. And especially Tammy's children, because they have been so misled in this, and it's really, I really have, my heart hurts for them. It really does, and I don't think that they'll ever want to walk up, shake hands, and I'm the first person to give every one of them a hug, and I don't blame them. This is not their issue, but I hope someday that as part of our closure on this is that they can reach closure, they being Tammy's children, and that maybe we can provide some sense of relief for them, that I've never been mad at them. That's not what we were ever there for. We just went there to find two children, and they've had a horrific loss. We've had a horrific loss. This has been nothing but about losses for the rest of our life that we'll all have to live through. And that's sad. It really is sad.
You know, Justin, through this, and I really didn't know much about Tammy because her family's been quiet, and that's good. That's what they need to do to get through this. That's what they need to do, and no judgment. Getting to meet Tammy's aunt and her cousin was wonderful.
It was.
It was so. She got to bring Tammy to. She brought Tammy to life for us, and it really was. It warmed our heart to hear some stories and just to be able to think about Tammy, other than just thinking of a black hole, or just not knowing, what to think past just her name. And she was a kind and loving and funny person. She was witty. She sounded like a lovely person to be around, and a lovely person to be a mother to her children. And all of that was taken away because Chad and Lori were horny and greedy.
And maybe you found some similarities between yourself and Tammy. I mean, she was going to turn 50 soon, and she was a mom of 5, a grandmother. Yeah, through the trial, we really got to learn more about who she was and the classes she was taking, and how just kind of full of life she was with the fitness, and she loved her job. I mean, really, you only heard good things about her, and it is tragic because she was Chad's wife of nearly 30 years, and then she was, as we found out, asphyxiated, and if not for the exhuming of her, a lot of information would have been hidden. And then you also have another victim in all this with Brandon Boudreaux, who's a close friend of you all, surviving an attempted murder. And so that's part of the Arizona charges, and another indictment on Lori for conspiracy to commit murder. So there's still a long road ahead.
Thank you for digging that up, by the way. Thank you for digging that up, Justin. We appreciate it.
I had to do that. I appreciate that. And speaking of Arizona, were you surprised at how many witnesses, specifically law enforcement, came from Arizona and testified?
Yes. I was shocked. I didn't realize all those witnesses would be there. I learned a lot of things about Charles's murder, and just Lori and Chad's actions during, before, during, and after. From just their actions were just so just cold and calculated, and hurry up, let me get this over with so I can go be with Chad. Let me hurry up and get this over with.
Those actions that they portrayed was
they're sickening.
Pure premeditation.
They're sickening, disgusting people, and the most selfish you could ever be. The most selfish.
Okay, I have one other question for both of you. Which witness would you say was just the most crucial to all of this, or just the most impressive or strong in their testimony, or something that stood out with them?
Let me take this. They built, it was amazing just to sit back and watch how they built the story for the jury. And then they would just interlace things, like, then they would bring in the personal part of things, and then they would bring in the FBI team that were part of this investigation team, and they just, the way they wove things in together was very well done, and it was easy to see how they, I mean, it was amazing what they did.
It really was.
But but the witness that the one that sticks out in my head the most was Audrey Bertiero.
Wow.
And I have a friend, Laura, who sat with me in the courtroom, and she knows body language. And the first thing I asked her when Audrey was done, because I mean, once I could close my mouth because it was dropped open, like with a huge sigh in the courtroom when she said what she said about what Lori told her. And then as she exited the courtroom, there were 2 people with her. just some family support. I don't know who they were, but as they left out of the courtroom, and the courtroom door was you had to go through 2 doors, and I could hear her wailing, crying. I know she was walking towards the elevator, right, to get out of the courthouse, and I could hear her wailing, crying. I mean, she was crying a cry that you can't unhear. You just, it broke my heart for her that she was hurt like that. However, she was playing with fire, and I am grateful she did testify. I'm grateful she got that off her chest. She was able to tell 100% of the truth, what Lori was like in her experience. However, you know, again, she was part of that inner circle that their morality, their morals are just
a lack of morals.
Well, I don't know. They put their own needs and their satisfaction of what they were getting from Chad Lori's group. Their needs were being fulfilled, but yet, so they failed to look or chose not to look. I don't know what it was, but they failed. Everyone that was murdered, they failed them.
And to remind everyone who Audrey is, she was Lori's former friend, part of that circle, and Chad had said, you know what, you need to be her friend according to the testimony, and told her that she was with Jesus's wife in a past life, and she had traveled with Lori and Melanie Pulaski to Hawaii and I believe Missouri, correct? But the one thing that was really a bombshell was when she said Lori threatened to kill her. She said Lori told her she'd cut her up and put her somewhere where no one would find her. We had never heard this before. We had never heard from Audrey. And for her to say something like this, that even I don't believe was heard in the grand jury presentation from what the defense argued.
She was still afraid.
And moments later, and you guys hear her just crying in the hallway. I mean, that was a lot to put out there.
Yes.
So that's who you say.
We've had other body and language experts tell us the same thing. Without a doubt, she was 100% telling the truth.
Okay.
And I think, to me, that was probably one of the critical things that put the biggest nail in the coffin of sealing this case. The FBI did an amazing job. I'm going to tell you, the state Attorney General's investigator was an amazing witness.
Yes.
And I think the presentation by all of the witnesses was so precise, the presentation was so simplistic in a way that it was all 100% pure evidence as it was presented in their own words. This isn't hearsay. This was in the text messages, the emails, audio, the video. That was so impressive that it to me, it's an amazing, but I think that last couple of minutes when Audrey was testifying was like, oh my goodness, this is real. This lady is bad. She is pure evil. And I think that if you looked into Lori's face at that time, you saw the evilness in Lori, that if Lori could have got that hatchet or a shovel or an axe and chopped her up right there on the stand, she would have done it.
I wasn't looking at Lori when that was going on. I was watching Audrey. So, but I did hear, several people say that Lori was so irate about that and just that they had, I mean, she sat up and she just was irate that Audrey said what she said. Yeah. And that just showed Lori's true colors. That was her true colors, is she could put herself, she wasn't in the right frame of mind to do something like that, but she could get herself there. Just the mere fact that she said, I could get myself there, it put a whole new light on the evil, the extreme evil that Lori is capable of. Yeah. I look at her in a different light now because of it. She is a lot more dark and evil than I ever gave her credit for. And that was a lot already, but that just threw her in a whole different level of evil.
And then she is now a convicted murderer. And Larry, I have one last question for you. You did talk to her defense after this was all done, after the verdict, and you know, it was an emotional moment. I'm sure you shook hands with them. What did they say to you?
You know, the one thing, if you'll remember, Justin, when we started this, when those attorneys were assigned this case, I told them, y'all got a job to do. I respect you for what you have to do. I said, I'm not mad at you. You got a job. And she has a right to a quality defense. And I am glad that they were able to provide that defense. It's hard to defend the indefendable.
There wasn't a whole lot for them to fight.
What could they have done different?
Not one witness was called. Not one witness was called.
Not one person was in there in Lori's favor.
Yeah.
Not one person. That just shows you everybody. The only one that was on her side was Chad, and you know, we've heard that he's done with her. So you know, that's what we've heard.
But going back to your question, Justin, what did we talk about? You know, the first thing I wanted to do was shake their hands and tell them that I appreciated their work and their effort. And, you know, I'm not even considering I won't hold a grudge against them for doing their job, because I think they did the best they could with what they had. But I told him that I hope, you know, I think John or Jim, which one had his
Jim Archibald and John Thomas.
John Thomas had two of his children there. And I never did introduce myself. I mean, I regret that.
I think it was his son and a girlfriend.
A son and a daughter, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, but regardless. Yeah. And I did. I wanted to tell him, hey, be proud of your dad for what he's done. He's got a hard job and probably a thankless job.
Yeah.
Good point. That's a good point.
I wasn't very thankful for them for a few times.
Well,
just I was not.
I see what you mean. Like, this is America, and everyone, you know, has a right to a fair trial.
They deserve a quality defense.
Right.
And if the shoes were turned, and you know, I mean, I couldn't do that to somebody, but if the worst case scenario, I was that crazy, you know, I'd want a quality defense, and you know, and a righteous verdict to come out of it. But I just thanked them, and I think, you know, it's just like we thank Robin and all of the attorneys. You know, it was a heartfelt win, if you want to call that a win, a guilty verdict, because it's a shame so many people lost their lives. For what? You know, how many times have you heard me say that? For what? And so now, you know, we're looking for some more closure. And I think time's going to take care of most of this, Justin, for everybody.
Well, Larry and Kay, once again, as always, I appreciate you for just coming on to talk, vent, and tell your truth to me. And you know how much I think of you both, and we've come a long way. And once again, I'm happy for you guys getting that justice. And now it's on to Arizona.
Yeah.
Arizona, and then back
not to the snow,
back to Boise.
Back to the heat.
Yeah. Remember,
So
we are going back to Boise. And,
for Chad.
For Chad. And then we go, to Arizona.
Well, however
we'll see how it goes. But
and then the most important date is we're going back to Rexburg.
Well, mid-August, or saying Fremont County. It'll be around mid-August. I think we're gonna drive up there this time, and
we don't
take
know.
in a few sites.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, man.